wobbly here. Well, I think the turnout that we saw today, and I think the anger that we saw today against austerity, against the water charges, really shows up that the government boasts of a recovery, attempting to stoke up fear, keep the recovery going, keep us in power for a second term, simply isn't working. Ask the workers in Tesco if they think there's a recovery, or Dunn's, or many other workers like the Lewis workers that Breed mentioned. And I think what today shows is that we can win on the water charges. The government have tried to play it down throughout the election campaign, but it remains something that's raised very regularly on every door. Everybody who's canvassed here will confirm it. And the strategy to win on the water charges is threefold. Number one, to take to the streets as we did today, to show the general public the campaign is alive and well. Number two, to keep up the boycott, which is absolutely critical, because whatever government gets into power, after the election, they will not abolish the water charges if people are paying it in large numbers. Because there's no doubt we will hear the usual arm twisting from the Troika, the EU. We've spent a lot of money on the meters, people accept it, etc., etc. The boycott's very important. But obviously the election is also very important, that there's people associated with a fighting stance against the water charges returned into the next dole. And I think the march today, but also figures that were released on Thursday with regard to the other travesty in our society, the housing and homeless crisis. 40% of people who are homeless in Dublin live in my constituency. You didn't have to tell me that, because we've been swamped and inundated with their misery, the stress, the mental health defects that those people are facing because of what's been inflicted on them by our government. But you will be amazed that there's two ministers, one a future leader of Fine Gael, Leo Varadkar, and the other, the current leader of the Labour Party, residing in that homeless black spot. And I think it says everything about capitalism in 2016. It's more blatant, more unapologetic than ever before. That we have 62 people on this planet that own the same wealth as half of this planet. Just soak up those figures for a minute. 62 billionaires have the same wealth as 3.5 billion of the poorest people in the world. That's why we're here. Because nobody else, as Breed said, is actually pointing to the wealth or talking about wealth at all. It's the word that dare not speak its name in this election. And in the past few weeks, we've heard about this new term, fiscal space. The so-called fiscal space, a contrived debate designed to direct people's gaze towards a few crumbs when there's a big, massive cake sitting behind it. And the few crumbs are what we are meant to staff our hospitals with, staff our schools with, and keep our public services and build the tens of thousands of houses that we need. It simply isn't possible. And unfortunately, the four main parties, including Sinn Féin, let's be absolutely clear on this, have not only accepted that figure, but actually Sinn Féin are saying, no, we've only 8.5 billion, not 10 billion, the government has it wrong. This is absolutely points up the need for a left alternative in the Dáil and in society. Because there's no way they can make and they can keep their promises of what they're going to do if they confine themselves to that amount of money. It simply isn't possible. 50 billion was cut from our public services since the recession began, and they're talking about 10 billion. So if we go by what the main parties are saying, we will have 20% restoration of our public services. That's the message we have to get out to people in the last 6 days of this election campaign. And let's not leave Sinn Féin off the hook on that either. Now I think we have to point to where the wealth is. What have our famous 1% in Ireland been doing while we've had our lives plunged into poverty and into homelessness, etc.? Well, they've been raking it in, actually. They increased their wealth by 12 billion in 1 year. That 12 billion was twice as much as the rest of the 99% of us in 2013. So those are the kinds of figures that we need to get over in the debates in the election. And I think we have to say to people that the wealth exists to scrap the water charges, to scrap the property tax, which isn't a property tax at all, it's a home tax, to upgrade our water network, and to build the tens of thousands of houses that we need. What I'm hearing on the housing crisis is actually quite worrying, because I'm hearing parties talking about 50,000 houses in 5 years. So we're saying that the people who are homeless, the people stuck in 3 generations, sometimes 4 generations in one household, would simply have to put up with that for the next 5 years. That's completely unacceptable. During the Celtic Tiger, 80,000 to 100,000 houses were built routinely in this country. We can resolve the housing crisis if we have a left government, and no other way. And I think what we should say is that we can only reinvest in our public services when we actually tackle that wealth. But it would involve hitting the likes of Dennis O'Brien. It would involve making multinational corporations actually pay their taxes in this country for the first time in history. Now, the anti-austerity alliance, People Before Profit, I think is a very important progressive social force in this election and in the Dáil as well. These are really important issues for many people. Personal freedoms and the right to live your life in the way that you should be able to are something that we have to continually raise. And how ironic that the only country in the world to have a democratic vote to allow same-sex marriage has the scandal of the 8th Amendment in our Constitution. We have to raise repeal of the 8th Amendment as a critical issue in this election, expose the likes of the Jack Chambers that we saw in Dublin West the other night, looking lovely and young, but actually a dinosaur underneath it all. And we have to demand that the barbaric ban on abortion is gone. And the Anti-Austerity Alliance and People for Profit, if we get the magical figure of at least 7 TDs, obviously we'd like many more, and become a parliamentary group in the next Dáil, we give a commitment that we will put a bill, republish a bill to repeal the 8th Amendment within 3 months of the Dáil. That's it. I think that is something that we should put out. So the prospect of the parliamentary group of Socialists and Left TD is something we all must fight for in the next 6 days.
Thanks very much, Ruth. Without further ado, Richard Boyd Barrett.